YouTube channel, the Pappy Orion, and today we are talking to a very, very interesting person who is in Congo, a friend of mine, a brother, and is a person who has influenced me a lot and who's really doing great work, especially among young people in the region of South Kivu. And I will let him introduce himself. He will talk more about what he does there in Congo and his vision for our young people. I would like to ask you to first subscribe to this YouTube channel and make sure you share this video and like, and this is a great time for us to start doing such things and bringing insights on how our young people, how we can involve our young people in the development of our country. And that is the topic of today. So, brother, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
Thank you, Pappy. It is an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you. And let me just greet all your friends, all the people watching this, and pray God's blessing upon them and encouragement. My name is Nicholas Kyalangalilwa. I'm married, 2 lovely girls and 1 boy. I lead a church which we started a few years ago in the city of Bukavu. I like to see myself as a tool in God's hands to be the bridge to help people reach God's potential for their life, and particularly the young people. And so basically I lead a church, but I'm also involved with civil society, what you may call in some places a civic leader. Yeah.
And what is your role in the civil society?
So the civil society in the Congo is a lot more organized than it would be in other places, formalized. And so I'm one of the 5 members on the leadership team. I'm in charge. I'm the delegate or the nominate of. I was nominated on the committee by the religious groups, and so I'm one of the 5 delegates, and I'm in charge of what you would call the treasury. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a very big task, eh?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because every time people come to us, it's because they have problems, but that's why we're there. And it's not a big thing because, I mean, in the end, it's all about serving people.
Yeah. Cool.
And like I said, I consider myself a bridge that God would use as a source of blessing for many. And so it's not a big thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm made to that. So anyway, you talked about you being you just told us about you being a pastor of a church. And what is the focus of your church?
Well, so the church was started a few years ago, about 7 years ago, and the emphasis was, like any church, to help people know Jesus, to help people follow Jesus. But we realized in a country that claims to be a Christian country that there's so much violence going on, there's so much inequality going on, there's so much evil, corruption going on. Therefore, there should be something that's not right. Definitely, you can't have that many people claiming to follow Jesus and having very little reflection of the values of Jesus. And so we said, let's start this group, that start with this church, which will have a strong emphasis on basically the question we will ask, apart from all the good question any church would ask, is to say, what does it mean for us to be a disciple of Jesus in our context. What would it look like if Jesus was living in our context? And what we've found is basically encouraging people to be leaders, but who are servants, to love one another. That's what Jesus said. He says, you love one another. And that's what we're encouraging most of our people, is to say we don't live for ourselves, we live for others. If we're here, it's for others, to help them know Jesus, to help them have a vibrant relationship with Jesus, but mostly to have them see their life in the big purpose of God, which is they don't live for themselves, but they live for Him who died for them. It is our firm conviction that until the churches in all of Congo adopt such an attitude, we will not see real transformation. We will not see the shalom of God reflected in this place. And for this to happen, we need to return to the Bible, to the teaching of Jesus, to asking the right questions. You see, it is possible to be religious, but not to be Christian. It is possible to fill the churches, but not to follow in the steps of Jesus. And that's unfortunately what we see. You find many people in churches, and yet there's many kids who don't go to school. There's tribalism ramping up. There's killing. And some of the leaders in those militias would even claim to be servants of God. And so that's why we start the church, and with a strong emphasis on young people. But I guess we're all getting older now. We're not as young as it was when we started. You definitely are not getting younger, Pappy.
We're still all young. We're still in that generation. Yeah.
Not getting younger, but
yeah,
yes, we are young.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. We're not getting younger, but we are young. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and so why you talk about the vision and part of the reason why you started this church, and and the problem that we're finding among Christian churches around Congo. But how does your church influence the everyday life, for example, in empowering these young guys to say, I will start a business or I will become a politician?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as a church, we've decided not to do the traditional missions the way people do missions. So there's a lot of great work that is being done here by other communities of faith. So there's a lot of great schools. I went to a Catholic school. There's a lot of great hospitals. I mean, when I'm sick, I go to Panzi Hospital, which is a faith-based organization. And I mean, you know about Dr. Mukwege and everything. So there's a lot of people who've done a lot of amazing work in terms of education, in terms of medical care. And we prayerfully looked at what would be our contribution as a church with, of course, the philosophy I mentioned. And we came to the conclusion that if we work with younger people, if we had a strong emphasis on helping them lead well, if we had a strong emphasis on helping them start businesses that will create jobs, those will be two major areas we could specific and impactful way. And so our emphasis has been on those two areas, basically training young people on how to be servant leaders, to lead like Jesus, and then helping some of those leaders specialize primarily in the business sector. Now, of course, when they would lead existing organization, they would start their own social organization, and but we also emphasize the business part. Why do we do leadership? Because we, like I mentioned earlier on, we realize that people sometimes could not evolve their faith outside of their church or their personal prayers. And so it was important to show them that Jesus is not just Lord of my private life, he's Lord of all of my life. Basically, what Jesus is claiming is to say he wants to be king of all of the universe, and I must be his tool. And so how do we lead as Christian toward the shalom of God? How do we lead as Christian toward a more prosperous, more just society? Well, it only happens if Jesus says, if the leader gives his life for the many, if you're leading for the good of the many. And so servant leadership becomes a very important concept. But in our context here, servant leadership is not something that is promoted based on our history, based on the human heart, which naturally selfish. People want other to serve them, and they're not there to serve others. And so we've started training at various level. We have groups in high school, we have groups at university level, and then we have very specific training that we run with a group of 12 gifted leaders, men and women, over a period of 11 months. With that group, we've trained 60 people so far over 5 years. Now, we've trained a lot of other people at various levels, various degrees, with various results. Now, we also realize, young people were finishing school, but also wanting to get employed. And there's not that many work going around. And so we started putting an emphasis on encouraging the gifted young people to start businesses. That is going quite well. I think we have about 10 young people who started their own initiatives. Now, we don't provide any funding. We just provide coaching and training and mentoring. And they started this thing on their own. They're all at various stages. Some are 2 years into this thing. Some are, 5 years into this thing. And we're hoping that as it goes, they will also learn to mentor others, coach others, and this movement can go forward. So those, for us as a church, are two areas we can serve the greater community and serve this country and show them the love of Jesus.
Yeah, this is amazing, brother. I have experience. I have seen it firsthand what is happening there in the church, and I've been part of some of the outreaches around the city of Bukavu and beyond, in the villages, and it was and the church is making a tremendous impact to see that the young people in the church are not just being, given the message, but they're being told to go out there and practice by themselves. And that's what has captured me, and to see the leadership style that you're giving these young people also opportunity to actually go on the pulpit and preach the word themselves, which you don't usually find in Congo, because then to be even a pastor, you have to be someone who has I don't know the criteria of being a pastor in Congo, but I know the young people are not given the chance to actually in any position of leadership, whether it's in a political sphere or in a church sphere, or all these spheres of society. And I think for me, that's what really fascinated me with what you're doing there. And I just also without question, without question, I would like to reiterate on that. Again, as what is actually the challenges facing young people in Congo?
Well, as you mentioned again, if you look at the demographics, the statistic we're getting is about 50 to 60% of the African population, and I would argue the Congolese population is under the age of 16. What it means is you have a very young population, and yet those young people don't have a say in how things are run. Primarily because, again, in all society, there's extreme areas of power, and the older people, because they have experience, they have access to resources. They've been there longer. They keep that to themselves and only open it up to people they like. At the same time, and I'm not talking about just the politics. I'm talking about the church. I'm talking about the business. I'm talking about everything. But at the same time, you have this mass of young people who don't have much to stand on. They don't have a lot of hope in terms of the future. They don't have a lot of possibility in terms of jobs. And for a while, they were a great, and they are still in some part, a great source of instability. So a lot of these young people would join the militia groups. They will be in urban crime. And because they have no hope, they've got no alternative, and they're not involved in the actual life of the church or the society in general. And so I think that's a big challenge for Africa, is and particularly the Congo, is how do you use effectively and for the good of all people this mass of young people with a lot of energy, with a lot of potential. We have not been able to translate that into potential, actual potential for the continent and for our country. And I think that's a big challenge. So if we can be able to take all this energy, all this innovation, all this drive of young people and use it positively, it will serve the continent. But for that to happen, we need a change in mindset. For that to happen, we need a change in how our leaders approach how they do business. So in my case, how do you lead a church? Well, I've got to use the young people. Of course, most of them are inexperienced, like ours at some point, but I need to give them chance and coaching. And this young energy will help us. Now, when you work with young people, in our case, there's challenges. So they don't have money necessarily, they don't have resources. And so that's a challenge. But that's part of leading, right? You have to solve that problem. In terms of the country at large, and what I've found is young people are not so they're not used for what they can offer in terms of innovation and in terms of input. They are used as tools for people to stay in power. And so, I mean, I say they're abused. That's not even being used, they're just being abused. And so for me, that's the big challenge. The big challenge for the African continent, for the Congo, for our province, is to be able to give hope to these young people, is to be able to bring them on board and together design what our future will be. And so as these young people can see clearly where we're heading, and they can start working with that. And I think if we can get that, now I don't know how we get there. I mean, it's very complicated, but if we can get that drive, I think it will be able to help solve many problems.
Yes. Well, yeah. I second that exactly, because I mean that is what I've learned, and I've seen if there's no hope, there can be no development. You have these young people, their hope, their role models are some of these corrupt politicians, and their aspiration is just to become that, to say, okay, I'm going to become a politician and make as much money as I can, and but then it doesn't end there. It keeps on going, and I think you have seen that yourself. That during this election, you had a lot of young people, even people that I knew, including someone I met in a church, that people that were contesting to be whatever in the government, and I was like, come on, can't you work for some? Can't you save your people as well? You know.
Yes. So I mean, you're right. So we've got to create an environment that provides these young people with the alternatives. First, with the hope. They have to know that the future will be better, and see, because they feel like this is hopeless, and so they want to get somewhere else. Number two, we need to give them alternative. For there to be hope, they need to be alternative. They have to know that there's other ways you can do life. And so, like you mentioned, in the Congo, everybody thinks that you know, unless you do politics, there's no life. So you can't make life if you can't be well in life if you don't do politics. So we have to help these young people figure out that actually you can start your own business, for example. You can start an organization that helps the community, and there's an alternative. And so it's our job as current leaders to create an environment under which these young people will feel hopeful, and they will feel that there's an alternative, which will cause them to dig into their resourcefulness and be innovative and trust in the future to create a new system. Now, if we don't do that, if we don't create that environment, then it will just be very chaotic, hopeless, and then most of them will run. The best will run, and those who can't run will try and figure out a way to adapt to the current system, not to change it.
Wow, that is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so what is then, having all these young people? I mean, I'm guilty. I'm here in the diaspora, and I'm always talking and criticizing. But what is the potential there? What is there for these young people to actually get involved in? And why is Congo actually? If to add to that, what is there, and why is Congo unique? Why is the situation in Congo is very unique for people, for young people?
Yeah. First of all, let's talk about how unique the Congo is before we talk about how the diaspora can get involved.
Yeah.
There is a guy called Franz Fanon, who gave it's like a citation that everybody uses, and he says, Africa is like a gun, a revolver, and the trigger is the Congo. Basically, everybody throughout the past 100 years or so have realized the major potential that the Congo is. Not only that it is situated at the heart of the African continent, but it's got enormous potential. I mean, you just name it, whether it's mineral, whether it's agriculture, anything you name it. Number two, it's not only big, it's got a lot of people. With people come a lot of potential. There's over 450 different tribes. Now you can look at it as a problem, but I look at it as a diversity, and diversity is good because that's ideas, that's cultures, that's people, that's beauty, that's potential. And so the Congo itself has 9 different neighbors, 9 to 11, if I'm not mistaken. And so strategically, the Congo stands at the heart of the continent. Yeah. So when you, like in a human person, if your heart is doing well, everything is well. If your heart is not doing well, there's nothing you can do. And so the Congo is really at the heart of Africa. It's got all the potential, mineral, energy. I mean, you just name it, people. And so if the Congo is doing well, the continent will do well. If the Congo does not do well, the continent will not do well. 1998, we had a war that involved, 9 different armies. It was called the African World War because it's almost like all the continent was involved in our war. And so if the Congo receives blessing, and if the Congo is doing well, then it will be a source of blessing to all others. The numbers tell you, the Congo can feed most of Africa. It can give energy to all of Africa. I mean, you just name it. And so I think, again, I'm biased because I'm Congolese, but I think for too long, it has not received the attention it needs. Just like in any body, you want to make sure your heart is doing well. And so the Congo people needs to focus on Congo and then make sure that it does well, because if it does well, Africa will do well. It is by, we were not there in the Berlin conference, but in 1885, 1886, they decided this was going to be the Congo. They didn't know. God decided, but at that moment, the Congo became, you cannot do without it if you're talking about Africa. And so I think we need to go back to that. I think people need to take conscience, especially those who don't know much about the Congo. Most people don't know much about the Congo. They have never been there. But I think it's very important for them to realize how strategic that country is for the well-being of the African continent, and therefore how important action be designed to help the people of the Congo so as they will do that which I believe God has gifted them. Just like you would have today the United States. I mean, it's very difficult to get the United States out of the big picture of the world because it's just a big country. And it's the same thing, you know. Congo is called by design to be a leader on the African continent. And because the leader is sick, well, the continent is sick. But if the leader does well, then the continent will also do well.
Wow.
Now let's talk about the role of the diaspora. Now, I used to live in the diaspora. I grew up in the city of Bukavu and then went and did my studies. But then God called me back. And I think people need to find what is their place in God's plan, in God's design. Just like, let me use the example of an army. Not every soldier is a foot soldier fighting on the front line. No, they need logistics. They need to eat. So there has to be somebody at home plowing the field to get ready or collecting the food and ship it to the people on the front. So I like to look at myself as a front soldier. I'm in the trenches. I'm fighting every day, trying to get this place to work. But I need the support of those who are not in the trenches. I need somebody who will walk with me, not only encourage my heart, but at the same time strategize with me, give the supply that I need. And that's the role, I think, of the diaspora, any other good willing person. So the diaspora has the resources, which sometimes we don't have on the ground, has the contact, which sometimes we don't have on the ground, has the knowledge, because most of the diaspora have studied some of the greatest university, and they have been given by God the time to think. Because if you're in the trenches, you're not there to think, you're there to do. And so you need thinkers. You need people who will challenge your thinking, who will provide some more advice. And I think a good partnership between the diaspora and the people in the trenches is what we need. A good, I'll say, a strategic partnership. And if you don't have that, neither the people in the trenches will do any good work, neither the people back home in the diaspora. Everybody will feel guilty. Everybody will feel like they're not being useful. But if we understand our place in the big scheme of things, if we find our place in what God has given us as gifting, then we'll be able to do that which He has called us to with greater joy. So I don't think people in the diaspora should feel guilty. I think people in the diaspora should rejoice in the opportunities and privileges God has given them. I think they should then ask themselves and turn to God and say, okay, God, with the talent you've given me, with the privilege you've given me, with the opportunities you've given me, how do I serve my people? How do I serve the people you've chosen to make me part of? And I think out of that questioning will come an answer which will be a blessing to both the person in the diaspora and the person on the front lines.
That is
so you don't have to feel guilty, brother.
yeah. So, these are questions that I'm always asking myself, because sometimes it seems like us people living in the diaspora, we create a kind of image. We go there and we expect special treatment. You know what I mean? And I think you have experienced that sometime. And I've seen it with some of the people that go back there, and even I was guilty at the beginning to think, okay, I'm coming from the diaspora, therefore I'm special. You know what I mean? And that's why partly.
Well, so we all, yeah, you're right. We're all special. We're all special pawns in God's plan, and we have to find our place. I think the key is finding your place in God's plan. So that's why, for example, I value what we have with Focus Congo. Like from the start, I mean, you remember this, but from the start, I thought this is a strategic partnership. I think the mistake some people in the diaspora do is they think they will be the people doing the work on the ground. And I'm like, that's not how it works. you have to have a strategic partnership, because there are realities you don't understand on the ground, just like there are things I don't understand outside of my context because I'm front lines. And so I need people whom I trust outside of the context, just like you need people that you trust on the front lines, trust and respect. And so it is as finding that place, each of us, it is as being convinced of what God has designed us for. Now, some people in the diaspora will leave the diaspora and come back to the trenches, like I did. Some people are here will leave here at the front and go back to the diaspora, like some people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it has to be that which God has called you to.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, and then to actually go back to one of the things that you've said, the uniqueness of Congo and how important it is to the entire continent. But and to add to that, I also think it's important to the world, actually, Congo, because of the resources that it possesses. The second largest rainforest, which is very, very important to our environment and to humankind large. And we ought to care about Congo, and all the resources that I have. You know better. I mean, maybe you can add a little bit to that as well.
Yeah, so I want to talk about, I know a big thing in the West these days, it's climate change. For a long time, we've been the giant in the room nobody's speaking to. But like you've mentioned, we've got the second biggest forest in the world after the Amazon. So you can't talk of climate change and protecting the world without talking about the Congo. And yet we don't sit on the negotiation table, because again, we're not doing well. The giant is sick, and therefore nobody invites him to it. We've got the biggest resource of cobalt in the whole world. I think we've got about 60% of the world's cobalt. Today, you talk of electrical cars. The big names, Tesla, and therefore, they're buying all of their cobalt from us. Now, again, lot of injustice there. What are people get out of it? Almost nothing. But you can't talk of climate change, of renewable energy, without talking about the Congo. You can't. And that's not only our role as an African country, it's our role as a global country. So we can contribute. The Congo can contribute effectively to the well-being of the planet. But the problem is it is a sick country that is being plundered. And therefore it is not playing its role as effectively as it should. And that's why I hope for those who are listening for the first time, for those who don't know much about the Congo, and I'm sure if you talk to Pappy, he will give you some more details. He'll be more than happy. I know his heart for our country and our continent. But that's why we are convinced that it is the most strategic place to invest in terms of resources, in terms of investment. We're investing our own life because we believe, again, some people may say biased because we're Congolese, but we believe that if the Congo is doing well, our continent will do well, the world will do well. And if Congo is sick, the continent will be sick and the world will be sick.
I think it's a fact, actually, geographically where we are positioned and what we have blessed with. It is a fact. What we say, we might be biased, but I think if our fellow Africans can look at this fact and study this fact, they will actually understand that it's true. And also the world. And so with all of that, I've been talking to a lot of people in the diaspora also, and it's just been these questions of we've been polluted with these things that, okay, it is dangerous there. You cannot invest there. They will, in fact, you will not be able to succeed there. So many people are very scared that okay, if I go there, this is just a waste of time. What do you think people should do if those, especially those people that are scared to say, I cannot, for example, invest in young people that are already doing stuff, organization on a grassroots level, businesses, and I've seen a lot of businesses around that are really succeeding, but it's just that that investment that they don't have. So what do you think? What can you tell the people that are scared of coming to Congo and have listened to the world to the world narrative, to the media narrative?
Well, yeah, and that's where first of all I would say they start talking to Focus Congo. I mean, you've got the Kitoko Oil running program, which I fully support and I like, because I think we have to change the narrative. We have to change the narrative about the Congo. It is a dangerous place, yes, but it's not the most dangerous place. If you look at the statistics, there are places that are known as developed, which have more murders and killing than we have per day. They have more rape than we have per day. You just look at the statistics, you'll see. Now, of course, it is a very different system than the system that you find elsewhere. And therefore, if you're coming from a kind of westernized system to ours, it takes some time to understand what's going on. It's basically a mindset shift. And in that case, it is very difficult. So on the one side, I would argue that it's not the most dangerous place on planet Earth. I think that's just the media narrative. And there is a media narrative because, again, what we've seen is some people, there's a whole system that benefit from the bad media report of the Congo. And that's how some people raise their funds, and sometimes some people have their organization survive. We have chosen not to be those who go around and talk about the bad and the ill. We've chosen to be those who go and talk about the potential, because there are potential. They're not just sick people dying, there are potential. Like we just mentioned now, there's potential, and the Congo has a world position to hold. It can offer to the whole continent, not just to the whole world, not just to the continent per se. The other thing is to say, let's work at strategic partnership. And that's where Focus Congo comes in. I think it's a big focus would be to help identify people who are already doing grassroots level change, and you partner with them if you're not willing to make that change yourself. So some people will not be willing to leave their safe place in the West and come in a very different context. It will be very difficult for them. And they're not called. Now, as I said again, if that's what God is calling you to, then God will lead you. But if it's not calling you to, don't do it. Only do it if you're convinced that, because it's going to be hard. And if it's hard and God didn't call you to something that's hard, you're going to struggle, and you'll not make it. And so if you're convinced that's what God is calling you to, then make the move. But if you're not convinced, then prayerfully consider strategic partnership. And that's where organizations like Focus Congo become important, because they will now connect you to people, your organization, to people who are doing grassroots level, good grassroots level work that are changing the system, and hopefully with time creating a better system that will be open to all. So business-wise, for example, it's not like in the Congo there's no businesses. There are businesses. There are young people are starting businesses. It's just hard. It's hard doing business.
Yeah.
It's very unstable. It's very uncertain. It's very volatile. We have an internet shop. We started 3 years ago. We receive payment. I mean, you know this. We receive payment in Congolese franc. The money has devaluated over 150% in the past 3 years. And so literally you lose your capital. So it's very hard to do business here. And so and it requires a lot of energy, a lot of commitment, and a lot of strategy. I mean, you really have to think hard on how to keep it going. So I think some of the guys who are doing business here, I have a lot of respect for them. I mean, they work hard They work in very uncertain condition. They have all the people against them, all the system against them, and they still work hard and sometimes bring some prosperity to where they are. What I have not seen happen, and that's where a lot of our emphasis has been, is to encourage those people, despite all their hard work, not to be self-centered, but to be other people-centered.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The tendency is to focus inward. To these young people, no, you have to focus outwardly. You have to be the catalyst that creates a system that makes it easier for those who will come after you. So yes, the Congo is portrayed as one of the most dangerous places in the planet. I beg to differ. I think it's not. It is very different. It got its challenges, but everywhere on the planet, every country has its challenge. Number two, yes, it is a very different system than what you find in the West. But there are still people, young people, older people, who are working hard, and they're doing amazing work, and they need partners, strategic partners. And so if you feel drawn to do some work in the Congo, first consider, is God calling you to do the work, or is he calling you to come in as a support mechanism to others? Now, I'm reminded again of Moses. Moses goes with the army of Israel, and God says, you must go and have this war, and they go and have this war. And God says, well, as long as your hands are lifted, you will win. But if your hands go down, you lose. And so basically, Moses, they're fighting the whole day, keeps his hands up, and at some time he gets tired and puts his hand down. He needs Joshua and Aaron to keep his hands up so as the army can win. And so there are many places where people need strategic partnerships. So are you the one who needs to do the work on the ground, or is God calling you to come alongside someone who is already doing the work on the ground? I think if we start thinking like that, then we'll be able to help one another and together in partnership to do the work that God has called us to.
Yeah. Wow. That is solid. That is actually solid, because I think that is what is hindering some work that is being done by young people, or initiatives that are being brought forth by young people, that mentality of being self-centered, you know. And I think also that is also mentality which has been brought from politics, you know, like, hey, I'm gonna do this, my family, my tribe, this is my little kingdom that I'm building. And you have businesses also doing the same thing. That I was a bit shocked that there are businesses that are really flourishing, but they don't sponsor sports or activities for young people. But this is how the West actually flourishes in entertainment and sports, this sphere of sport and entertainment and culture, because the companies put themselves to say, okay, I've made this meal, I can give a little bit towards this initiative, and it doesn't happen in Congo. This culture, how do you think we can encourage this culture?
Well, it comes back to generosity. That's why for me, the church, they will do well in society, but they will do well the way Jesus says they should do well. And if their mind is renewed by the gospel, by the news of Jesus, they will understand that they are just steward of God's resources, that God has blessed them so as they will be blessing to others. They will not think that they have the blessing for their own enjoyment. And although the blessing will be a reward or a result or fruit of their hard work, they will understand that it's their hard work produces results because God has blessed the work of their hands. And so if you have people who understand that, It's easier for them once they have received all this blessing, while they've done well, to think of themselves as a source of blessing for many. And they will intentionally reach out to those. And this is what is missing. This part, this last piece, where people look at their wealth and their resources as not their own, but as being entrusted to them by God to bless others. That's what is missing. And so you see the inequalities in our society. It's not because God has not blessed some people. It's just because those who've been blessed have used their position to make the poor poorer instead of helping the poor at least have a decent life. Creating system that will be good for others. And that bridge there is what we're trying to work on with our leadership programs. That's what we're trying to instill in the people who come into our leadership program. Now, I mean, with any training, you never know, because this is not like school training where you assess them. The assessment of our training is a life assessment. It's only once they've lived their life that you will know that they actually got it or didn't get it. So it's very difficult to assess, but I'm confident that if we have this dialogue, if we keep talking about it more and we have more people under this training, what will happen is that sometime this will become the normative dialogue and what everybody else consider as normal. And so, yes, I mean, we have to get to that place where those who've been blessed with many think of it as their responsibility to reach out to those who have not received the same privilege and favor.
And then last actually an example. Last month, there was this initiative started by a group of Instagrammer, young people from Bukavu and Goma as well. So they put a thing together. They call the Humanitarians of Bukavu, and they wanted to collect money from different people in Bukavu and to go and give food to some places in the outskirts of Bukavu. And these guys, the initiative looked really good because what they were asking is $1. It looked really, really good. The vision of these young people I really commended them, and this is great. We need more people like you. But at the end, they didn't receive money from Bukavu. No, people didn't want to donate. $1. This is like, of course, for some people it's very hard, but there are a lot of people that can say if 100 people each give $1, that's $100 to help those in need. And actually, I was sitting one day on my bed and I was almost in tears to think that people that have money, people that are sitting in their house comfortably, they're really forgetting about those people that are suffering in the poor areas of Bukavu. Yeah, and at the end, we had to really work hard, and all of us that were involved gave really out of our pocket to make sure that this initiative really advanced, and we could give at least something to a certain part of the city.
And I think you've got it there. You've got it there. So there's a culture that needs to change. There's a culture of generosity. There's a culture of how people use the money and resources and to what end. And as you know, culture don't change overnight. And when it comes to resources and money, you're not just talking about culture. You're talking about personal conversion, personal transformation. And it's things that we can create the environment, but me and you can't produce. Only God can. And so we're always waiting on God. We're always praying on God. But we also know that it is possible because we've seen it. We've seen it. I mean, you in Germany, you know it. I mean, those are in the United States, they know it. There is a culture of generosity. It may not be perfect, but it is there. It is there, and that's what we need. We need a culture of generosity. Yeah.
My computer is I need to check. So yeah. So we're going to do our two last questions. Then we're going to wrap up. But it's just really been interesting to, just to have this friendly talk. And I'm hoping
Well,
that,
it's my pleasure if I can help in any way.
yeah, and I'm hoping that people that will listen to this conversation, it will resonate with them. They will find a way in which they identify. Maybe if they are Congolese in a diaspora, they will want to come back and visit, or even found an organization that on a grassroots level that they can be able to support. Or if they need more information, I think they can always reach out to us. I will leave Nicholas' email and website in the description here. And then also my email will be here. So you can always write to us. And if you have any question concerning sphere of church, sphere of business, or entertainment, we can always link you up with people that are doing these things. So but before we finish, I would like to ask you a question, which is maybe a difficult question to answer, but I think you have some kind of broader way, as you have a vision for Congo, and you are working with young people. So my question is, do you think there is hope?
Well, that's not even a difficult question, Pappy. That's like the easiest question you've asked me today. Yes, brother. Yes. Yes. There is hope. There is hope. You don't see it. So if you sit in the West and you read the news, you don't see it. If you come and do what I do every day, you don't see it every day, but you see glimpses of it. You meet stories of young people who understand and who are working hard to see change. You meet stories of young ladies who get it and don't let themselves mold by tradition, but rather start seeing their identity as created in dignity and gifted by God to be agent of change. So there is hope. There is hope, and there is a lot more people who wants to see change than people would like to say. What we need to be working at presently is to create an ecosystem that makes this change possible, that makes this hope more real. That it's not just in the speeches and the talks of pastors or Christian like me and you, that it is something that everybody can feel in the air. And that's the work that I think we need to be focusing on now, is to creating an ecosystem that makes the hope real to everybody and basically give them a possibility to hope. Yes. And that's what we need to be doing. That's what we're trying to do with the leadership. Basically what we do, we give them tools for leading, but in a nutshell, we're just really saying to them, there's hope. There's hope. It's possible. That's all they need to do. They need to know, and they need to hear people speak into their ears and encourage them and say to them every day, it is possible. It is possible. And it's the word, it is possible, that we give them, and that will give them hope. So yes, there is hope. But for the hope to be felt by everybody, we need to work. We need to work at creating a new narrative locally and internationally. We need to create a group of partners or accomplices in this project, people who will help us make our voices reach in places we can't, because we need to change the narrative. If you can change the narrative at grassroots level, at a higher level, you will create the hope that people need, so as they can now start working toward the change that is required. Yes, there is hope.
Amen. Amen.
That's why I'm here anyway. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think there was hope.
That is right. That is right. I second that myself. I believe there is hope. Someone told me when we started Kitoko, and I was presenting someone, they told me that that hope doesn't sell. And I was like, hope doesn't sell, really. nobody will ever give you the money if you are selling hope. You have to sell misery in order for you to be able to get. And I think that
Well, you
is
see, that's the problem.
yeah.
You're right. That's the problem. The problem is a narrative that we are given about specific places. I mean, this is not today. This is started 200 years ago. And I think people don't realize for King Leopold II to be given the Congo, what did he say? He said, oh, I'm going to save these people from slavery. And so since that day, all the marketing, let me use the word marketing or narrative about Africa and especially the Congo has always been negative. And I'm not surprised, because if that's the only narrative that there is, what result do you want to see on the ground? I mean, there will not be any other result. It will just be dark, because everybody expects it to be dark. Yeah. And so we're saying, no. We have to say that it's light. It's got potential. There's great things happening here. And there's greater things to happen. And so, yes, I fully back you, brother. And I hope sells, you know, I mean, who look at the movie industry, right? Look at Hollywood. Yeah. Who goes to watch hopeless movies? Nobody. No one. We watch movies. We watch because they inspire us, because they give us hope. So yes, hope does sell. It may just not have been selling for Congo, but that's where we want to go. Exactly. Yeah. And finally, the last question maybe is, you know, I seem to focus so much on the diaspora, and I think it's because I identify with the diaspora, because I left Congo when I was 11, and I pretty much grew up, you know, in the diaspora. So and it just been for me, this thing has been coming to me to actually encourage the diaspora, because I've been seeing people that I talk to about Congo, and the first thing that they tell me is like, yeah, that country, that is very dangerous. I don't want to go there. That country full of this. Yes, and yes, there's all of these things. But for me, my struggle and the message that I always want to bring to the diaspora is to tell them that I've been going there. You know, I have a family there. I have a church there. I have friends there. I feel fulfilled when I'm there. But on your part, someone who's living there, what can you tell the diaspora? You know, how can you encourage them? Well, yeah. Well, I'll say first of all that I know they have been exposed to a lot of those negative narratives, and some of them have no connections with the ground to be able to discern what is genuine out of that narrative and what is not, what has been put in disproportionate situations and what has actually been reported faithfully. So step one is to say, hey, just create some connections, you know, have people on the ground, visit, come see for yourself. There's a lot of ugly stuff, I do agree. But there's a lot of good stuff and beautiful stuff happening too. There's a lot of difficulties, but there's also a lot of potentials. But you will never know this until you have created the connections. You will never know this until you yourself has come and visit. So the first thing is visit, start, you know, like by talking to you. Yeah, so that's step one. Now, number two is, I think, and this is just for me. Hello. Yes, I think, and this is just for me. But I think the best place to be investing one's life in our generation time as Congolese people is actually in this country. We talked about it earlier on, but this country has the potential to change the continent, the whole of continent. And guess what? Me and you, we're young enough to see the change. In a generation time, we can see that. This country can influence the world. It is I mean, you cannot talk of the future of the world at the current speed of climate change, ecology, world preservation without talking about the Congo. You cannot. And therefore, this country is a place that we need to be investing in. Third, today the Congo has somewhere about 80, 100 million people. It has been estimated, projected, that by the turn of the century, 2100, Africa will have 40% of the world's population. 40% of the world population will be African. Currently, the Congo has probably, I think, if I'm not mistaken, close to 15 to 20% of the African population. So what we are saying is 15 to 20% of the 40% of the world, which is roughly 10%, 5 to 10% of the world population will be Congolese. So we're already the biggest French-speaking country in the whole world. So this country has potential for being a major player, not only in cultural, politics, economics. It has a great role to play in the world. And I'm very proud, not only to be Congolese, but to be among the people who are working. So as this country will find its place in the platform of countries around the world. So my word to the diaspora is investing, because this is the only place you can invest effectively if you want to see change at a national, continental, and world level, globally.
That is solid. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What I'm saying that is amazing. The conversation and the last word you just give to our diaspora, that is very, very solid. And I think we ought to look at the resources that we've been given. I remember visiting Kahuzi Biega last time when I was there. And basically, I did visit a lot of sites. I went to Nyiragongo, I went to Virunga, I went to all these sites. And I was so amazed by the beauty, by the, basically a blessing that God has given to us. He could have put it somewhere else, to other countries. He's given to another country, but he gave it to Congo. And I think we need to treasure, whether you are in the diaspora, whether you are in Congo, if you're Congolese, this is also yours, and you have to play some kind of a role. You have to also benefit to reap from it. And I think we always have to be reminded of that. So I want to really thank you very much for taking your time to talk to us, and for always being a person who encourages me, who inspires me. And of course, when I'm there, when I'm in Congo, I always find it amazing to just come to you and get encouraged. That's not the only thing that I do, but whenever I'm around you, I feel again full of energy. I return back to Europe knowing that there are people that are doing great things. There are people that are really going beyond and thinking about the young people in Congo, and you are one of those people. So thank you very much. And last word, maybe you want to say?
Well, let me thank you, Pappy. I think what you're doing is amazing. I fully support it. I will continue in as long as I can, and whichever capacities I can. I think we need to change the narrative. And for us to change the narrative, we need people like you who are good with media, who are good in the artistic world, who can tell the story differently. And I know how hard it is, so I find it my duty in that everybody expects, you to put pictures of young little kids who are crying and don't have food, and say it's a hopeless place. And when you say, but yes, I know it's a challenging place, but it's a hopeful place, it will not find people's ears. So I will not only keep you in my prayer, but I will continue to encourage you and support you in whatever way I can. I love what we've had here, and I hope this discussion will continue with many other people. I don't think I'm the only one. I think you have met a few others who God is working through, and they're also doing their part and their bits where God wants them to be working. What I am just saying as a final word to you who's in the diaspora, to me and the many who are here, is that we need to find a place in God's plan, and we need to strategically partner for that place, for that plan to be a reality. We all know, we are convinced that the only place worth investing our time, our money, our energy is in this country that God has gifted us with. It's not just for us, it's for the whole world to come and see. You know, in Romans 8, verse 18, there's the first part which says, Paul says he considered that our present suffering are not compared to the glory that is to come. But then there's a second bit where it says, creation waits in eager expectation for the revealing of the sons of God. The creation waits with eager expectation for the revealing of the Son of God. The whole creation is waiting to see. Basically, what Paul is saying is, all of creation is saying, where are the children of God? And I think that's what the Congo is saying. Where are the children of God? Where are those who've been conquered by the blood of Jesus, who have surrendered to him, who will lift us up from this place? Where are those people who will sacrificially live for the good of the many? That's the question. And I pray that that will be a call to all of us, that you in the diaspora and us in the on the trenches in the Congo will respond to the call of God and show to the creation that yes, are children of God in the Congo. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I will leave us with that question that you say, where are the children that have been lifted up by the blood of Jesus? Where are the children that have been lifted up by God? So guys, let's ponder on that question as we finish watching this video. And remember to subscribe to this channel, share the video. This is a great conversation. I can't wait to rewatch it. Like, and let's make this movement, let's spread this movement. And I believe, just as Nicholas said, there's going to be many more people, many more conversations. In this series, this is the first conversation, but we're going to continue. We're going to try to pinpoint people that are making an impact in Congo or in Africa, especially in Congo. And thank you guys for watching. Love you guys, and blessing to you all.
Thanks, Pappy.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.